Two other headline stories this hour in the latest bid to find a political solution to the war in Syria. Russia and the US are to chair a meeting of the International Syria Support Group in New York. Ahead of the gathering, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and US Secretary of State John Kerry met overnight. Cameras spotted Mr. Lavrov entering a New York hotel for talks with his American counterpart. The meeting was held behind closed doors and nothing as yet is known of the outcome. US-Russia cooperation in Syria has been in the spotlight all week, culminating in a heated exchange between diplomats at a UN Security Council meeting. Ilya Petrenko takes up the story.
Tension was visible and clear just ahead of the UN Security Council session on the Middle East. I didn't see a single smile on the faces of both of them as the top diplomats walked by me a couple of times today. Then inside the UN Security Council chamber, there were two speeches, clearly one against another. It was Sergei Lavrov speaking first, and then John Kerry took the floor.
The coalition airstrikes against government forces in Deir ez-Zor on September the 16th were a blatant violation of the ceasefire. Moreover, right after these strikes, Islamic State started their offensive against government forces.
Yes, the coalition did hit people on Saturday. We did. A terrible accident. And within moments of it happening, we acknowledged it.
We should refrain from emotions and not rush to make comment. We should carry out an investigation thoroughly and professionally.
I listened to my colleague from Russia, and I sort of felt a little bit like we're sort of in a parallel universe here.
The key priority is to separate opposition forces from ISIL and Jabhat al-Nusra terrorists.
It's very hard to separate people when they are being bombed indiscriminately.
So they're talking of living in completely separate realities. Well, that is nothing new when Washington is talking to Moscow. But I have to point out that when on Tuesday we heard John Kerry and also UN's Special Envoy on Syria speak about the ceasefire, they said that it is still not dead despite being in great jeopardy. Well, to try and make sure that this jeopardy doesn't lead to a complete collapse of the truce, Sergei Lavrov is going to meet again one-on-one John Kerry tomorrow. Then also the International Syria Support Group is going to convene in New York once again on Friday. So let's see what comes out of these meetings.
Well, our team managed to speak with the NATO Secretary General and asked for his views on the convoy bombing. Jens Stoltenberg said it's too early to draw conclusions.
I will not speculate about that. It's important to get the facts and to find out how this could happen, but I will not speculate.
But Mr. Kerry called it facts, you know, when he was addressing the UN Security Council.
But that's not for me to go into. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The NATO Secretary General's viewpoint was in stark contrast to that of John Kerry's. RT's Murat Gazdiev got to fact-checking the Secretary of State's allegations.
John Kerry has a reputation as one of the more reasonable voices in American politics. He's careful, thorough, not a rash person. This time around, though, he was a little more relaxed with the facts.
And just think about what happened in the last couple of days. First, President Putin's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, claims that the attack on the humanitarian convoy was somehow a necessary response to an alleged offensive by al-Nusra elsewhere in the country. That's the first claim.
No, that's the first lie. In fact, we have the actual quote from President Vladimir Putin's spokesperson, and it says, "I don't think it's right to make any unfounded statements about this attack, and that the military's collecting the details." But John Kerry didn't stop there.
Then we heard a completely different story. The Defense Ministry said that the aid convoy had been accompanied by militants in a pickup truck with a mortar. We've seen no evidence of that.
It's right there. It's been there for 24 hours ever since the Russian Ministry of Defense released the video. That is a militant truck towing a howitzer. We don't know who the truck belongs to, whether it's al-Nusra or Washington's preferred rebels. They're very friendly in Aleppo. Nevertheless, Mr. Kerry was on a roll.
Then the defense ministry switched completely. And it denied Russia's involvement. It said, according to spokesman Igor Konashenkov, I quote, neither Russian nor Syria conducted airstrikes on the UN humanitarian convoy in the southwestern outskirts of Aleppo. That's a quote.
That's what you call a straw man argument. No, they didn't switch because they never said that it was Russian jets who carried out this attack. In fact, the Russians said their jets had nothing to do with this attack from the onset. They later added that neither did Syrian jets. More than that, the Russian Defense Ministry released information that at the time of the attack in the skies over Aleppo at a 3-kilometer altitude was an American Predator drone. Washington denies that that drone was ever over Aleppo.
And that Predator drone carries Hellfire missiles, which has been used for targeted assassinations. It's been deployed by the US in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, and now in Syria. One expert we spoke to said that unfounded allegations from US officials are complicating the peace process in Syria. Here's former US intelligence officer Elizabeth Murray.
What we have really on the ground is chaos, and we need to get the parties back together to talk so that the people in Syria can have their life back again. So really, again, I mean, this more than any other time is the time for diplomacy and not for ill-considered statements. And I would urge my compatriots, my policymakers to really keep that in mind, because this is not a game.
And Russia's defense ministry has announced plans to send an aircraft carrier to the eastern Mediterranean. The Admiral Kuznetsov will join Russia's naval group off the coast of Syria in anti-terror missions. The vessel can carry more than 50 aircraft at a time and will be used to transport fighter jets and helicopters. It's also armed with anti-ship cruise missiles. Its mission in the region is expected to last up to 5 months.